Spirit Airlines has officially ceased operations, thousands of passengers stranded overnight. One of America's most controversial airlines is gone. For years, people laughed at Spirit Airlines. The tiny seats, the baggage fees, the delays, the screaming passengers. The internet treated Spirit Airlines like a joke. And honestly, sometimes it was. But here's the strange part. Despite all the complaints, millions of people kept booking flights every single year. Because Spirit sold something incredibly powerful: hope. The hope that almost anyone could afford to fly. A $40 ticket, a cheap vacation, a last-minute escape. And for a while, that business changed aviation forever. Until suddenly, it all collapsed. No warning for passengers, no dramatic goodbye, just grounded airplanes, empty airport gates, and an airline that no longer existed. So what actually happened? How does one of America's most recognizable airlines completely disappear? And why do some experts believe Spirit Airlines was secretly doomed from the very beginning? Because this story isn't just about a failed airline. It's about one of the most ruthless business models ever created in aviation. Before we continue, please consider subscribing to our channel for every future information we drop. You will be getting it on time. Also, you will support our channel's growth. Now back to the video. Long before Spirit Airlines became famous, it was just a small trucking company. Back in 1964, the business was called Clipper Trucking Company. Nothing about it suggested aviation success. No airplanes, no airports, no billion-dollar ambitions. But years later, the company transformed into a travel business called Charter One. Instead of operating traditional airline routes, they mainly organized vacation packages to places like Atlantic City and Las Vegas. At the time, airline travel still felt luxurious. Flying was expensive, passengers dressed formally, meals were included, extra baggage didn't cost anything, and airlines competed on comfort. But during the 1980s and 1990s, something started changing. Deregulation transformed the airline industry. Competition exploded, and airlines discovered a dangerous truth. Most passengers didn't actually care about luxury, they cared about price. And one company was about to exploit that harder than anyone else. That company became Spirit Airlines. Spirit's strategy sounded almost insane. Instead of offering a better experience, they would offer the cheapest experience possible. Everything unnecessary would disappear. Less legroom, fewer comforts, no free extras. And then came the real innovation. Spirit realized the ticket itself didn't need to make money. The extras did. So the airline started charging for nearly everything. Carry-on bags, seat selection, priority boarding, food, drinks, even printing boarding passes at airports sometimes came with fees. Passengers were furious, but the prices were unbelievable. Flights sometimes cost less than a dinner at a restaurant. And suddenly, millions of Americans who normally couldn't afford air travel could finally fly. Spirit wasn't selling comfort, they were selling access. And, financially, the strategy worked brilliantly, because Spirit understood human psychology better than most airlines. Passengers hate paying high prices more than they hate discomfort, and Spirit weaponized that idea perfectly. But there was one major problem. The cheaper the airline became, the more fragile the business model became too. Very quickly, Spirit Airlines became infamous, not famous, infamous. The airline developed one of the worst reputations in America. Passengers uploaded videos of arguments on board, delays spread across social media, tiny seats became memes, late-night comedians mocked the airline constantly. Some travelers described flying Spirit like surviving a survival challenge. And yet, the plane stayed full, which seems completely irrational, until you realize something important. Passengers would complain online, but still book another flight days later, because nobody could consistently match Spirit's prices. The airline became a master at exploiting what economists call price sensitivity. People say they care about comfort, but many care more about saving money, and Spirit pushed that idea to its absolute limit. At one point, the airline made massive amounts of revenue from fees alone. In some cases, the extra charges were more profitable than the actual tickets. Traditional airlines watched this carefully, because while the public mocked Spirit, executives secretly admired the profits. And slowly, the industry began copying Spirit Airlines. Bag fees spread everywhere. Basic economy tickets appeared. Seat charges became normal. Ironically, the airline people hated was quietly changing aviation forever. But then, everything started going wrong. Ultra-low-cost airlines only survive under very specific conditions. Fuel prices must stay manageable, flights must remain packed, operations must stay efficient, and customers must continue tolerating the experience. The moment one of those things breaks, the entire system becomes unstable, and for Spirit, multiple things broke at once. Fuel costs surged, pilot shortages spread across aviation, maintenance delays increased, aircraft deliveries slowed down. Then operational problems started spiraling. Flights were delayed more frequently, passengers became angrier, customer service complaints exploded online, and social media made every disaster public instantly. But the worst was still coming, because in 2020, the airline industry experienced something almost unimaginable: COVID-19. Practically overnight, global air travel collapsed. Airports emptied, flights vanished, airlines lost billions of dollars, some carriers were burning millions every single day just trying to survive. And Spirit? Spirit was especially vulnerable, because low-cost airlines survive on volume. Constant movement, constant bookings, constant packed flights. When people stopped traveling, Spirit's business model started collapsing underneath it. And even after travel returned, the damage remained. Debt increased. Passengers were frustrated. And investors started worrying about something terrifying. Could Spirit Airlines actually fail? By the early 2020s, Spirit Airlines desperately needed stability. And then suddenly, a lifeline appeared. JetBlue wanted to buy Spirit Airlines. The deal was worth billions, and if approved, it could completely reshape the airline industry. But almost immediately, the merger became controversial, because despite all the jokes about Spirit, the airline played a critical role in keeping ticket prices low across America. Regulators feared something dangerous. If Spirit disappeared into JetBlue, competition could shrink, and ticket prices could rise nationwide. The U.S. government challenged the merger aggressively. A huge legal battle followed. Executives testified, lawyers fought, investors panicked. And behind closed doors, Spirit employees reportedly feared the worst, because many insiders understood the truth. Spirit needed this merger badly. Without it, the company's future looked terrifying. Months passed, tension grew, then finally, the decision arrived. The merger failed. And that moment changed everything, because overnight, Spirit lost its escape route. Wall Street reacted immediately. Confidence collapsed. Investors started asking whether Spirit could survive alone. And inside the airline industry, many people quietly realized the same thing. Spirit Airlines might be running out of time. After the merger collapsed, Spirit entered survival mode. The airline cut routes, reduced spending, attempted restructuring, searched desperately for cash. But the numbers kept getting worse. Debt pressures increased, operating costs remained high, passengers lost confidence, and competitors kept attacking Spirit's market aggressively. Then the rumors intensified. Could the airline actually shut down? For many passengers, it sounded impossible. Spirit was too famous, too recognizable, too large to disappear. But aviation history is brutal. Even giant airlines can die, and eventually, the collapse became unavoidable. Operations shut down. Flights disappeared. Employees faced uncertainty. Passengers scrambled for refunds and rebookings. Airports suddenly looked strange without the bright yellow planes. And just like that, Spirit Airlines was gone. One of the most recognizable airlines in America vanished. So what actually killed Spirit Airlines? Was it bad management? High fees? COVID? The failed merger? The truth is more complicated. Spirit's entire business depended on pushing costs lower and lower. But eventually, there's a limit to how far you can reduce comfort before passengers begin resisting. At the same time, aviation itself became more expensive. Fuel, labor, maintenance, aircraft, everything cost more. And Spirit's razor-thin business model became harder to sustain. Ironically, the airline that mastered cheap travel became trapped by its own strategy. Because once customers started demanding better reliability and service, Spirit had very little room to adapt. Despite all the memes, all the complaints, and all the chaos, Spirit Airlines permanently changed flying in America. Before Spirit, many airline fees felt outrageous. Today they're normal: carry-on fees, seat selection, basic economy. The industry slowly became more like Spirit Airlines. And maybe that's the strangest part of the story. The airline itself disappeared, but its business model survived. Millions of people hated Spirit Airlines. Millions flew it anyway. And now that it's gone, the airline industry may never look the same again. Thank you for watching. Please leave your comment below, like, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.